Today I'm going to show you how to create this winter birch tree painting. Our supplies are blue, red, black, and white acrylic paint. I also have two bristle brushes that are about maybe 3/4 of an inch wide, and a really tiny brush, a detail brush. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to create this faded background. It goes from light to dark blue. And the shade of blue that you choose really doesn't matter. It could be medium, it could be turquoise, it could be teal, you decide. Now that I have my white and blue set up on my painter's palette, I'm going to take some of that white and some of that blue and mix up a nice kind of medium value of blue. So what I'm going to do with that medium blue is I'm going to paint that right in the middle of my paper. If you need to use a little water to help your paint flow, please do. Now to fade, I'm going to fade it to light by adding some white. Again, a little bit of water. It's really going to help things flow. A little bit more white at the top, all the way to the edges. And you can see where it kind of jumps right here. I can go back to my medium blue or even more blue, and I can fade that. There we go. Now I'm going to go take some of that regular blue, and I'm going to blend it on up. Here I'm taking that pure blue at the bottom, and I'm just going to blend a little more water, and just kind of fade it like this. And you can fuss with it as long as you want. Okay, so now I have some black and white paint and a clean bristle brush. What we're going to do is we're going to paint those trees onto this background. We'll do that by just picking up some white paint and just painting the trunks of those trees white. While the paint is still a little bit wet, we're going to swoosh in some of these textures and shadows. It's perfectly fine if you can't paint a straight line, because really, trees do not grow in straight lines. They're a little wibbly and a little bumpy. So just have some fun making those trees, and don't feel any pressure that they need to be perfectly straight. There's one. And here's another. And that looks great with two. I think I'm going to put one more off to the side here. And let's say I want a skinny tree, so I'm going to use the side of my brush, like so. Trying to get those edges a little bit smooth. So this next step where we add the black shadowing and the textures, I like to practice on a scrap piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of some of that white. You can wash and dry your brush if you want to. I'm going to use the tip of my brush to pick up that black, all right? And then I'm going to wipe that black off. So really, I'm just kind of lightly scraping it like that, just using the tip of that brush. And I've painted a white tree here. You can barely see it from one side over. I'm just going to kind of hit the edges. Pick up a little bit of that black, test it out. And if you kind of create a little bit of a curved swoosh, it helps your tree look a little bit rounded. To create some of these knotty textures in there, again, we're going to take our black brush, pick up a little bit of black, and then just tap it in wherever you think you want to put some of those textures in there. And then finally, we're going to create an edge of this tree to add some shadowing. And I'll use a small brush for that, and I'll show you that in just a second. So you can see I have a little bit of a mess up right here, and I can fix my painting by painting over it. So my choices are this. I can use white paint and make that a fatter tree and paint over it that way. I can try to locate that blue that I used. That's going to be probably a little trickier, but it's working okay. I can paint over it that way. Or when it comes to putting the branches, I can always put a branch right there. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of shadowing on the side of the tree. You can see, and that's going to create sort of a light and a shadow on our art. To do that, I'm using a very small brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of black paint. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, and I mean black, excuse me. I'm adding a little water to my black rather, and maybe just a tiny bit of white to soften it, maybe make it a little more like a gray. There you go. You can see that. Now I'm just going to take that brush. Let me make sure I have the right amount on it, not too much. And I can just brush that on down like so. And again, it can be wibbly, it can be, you know, dark and light. Nothing has to be exactly perfect here. So there we have that. If you want to soften that a little bit, you can take a clean, dry brush. Like I've got a clean, dry brush. And what we can do is we can take it while it's still a little bit wet. We can sort of pull that into the tree texture, to the tree itself rather. Yeah, and that makes it really look a little bit more shaded. The last couple of things that we're going to do to this painting is add the small twigs and a few little cardinals. We're going to do that with black paint, a red paint, and a small brush. Okay. Again, I would advise taking your scrap paper and practicing this a little. I'm going to pick up some of this black paint for the twigs. I'm adding a tiny bit of water to make it flow like so. And really, these branches are irregular. Typically, they branch out to look like a letter Y. Most likely, they're going to have a skinnier tip. Whoops. Than the other parts of the branch. And I get the best control when I hold on to that paintbrush pretty close to, like on the silver part, and kind of rest my hand. Something like that. Those branches can overlap. They can kind of pop in and pop out from behind things. They can cross over, and you don't need tons of branches. You decide where you'd like them to go. So when you think you have enough branches, we'll move on to creating those cardinals. So what we're going to do with these cardinals is we're going to practice a little bit first. Really, it doesn't, for a painting like this, it doesn't need to be highly detailed. Just the suggestion of that red with a little bit of black on it, people will know that that's a cardinal. So don't get too worried that it doesn't have the feathers in just the right place. All right, so what I've done here is I've got my small brush again. I'm picking up a little red paint. I'm adding a drop of water or so I get that nice flow. And then I'm just going to start off with kind of an egg shape. Okay, a little bit of like an egg or football. You can give it a little tail by swooshing that out a little bit. If you want to flick his wing out, you can, a couple of wings. And then for his head, what we're going to do, he's got a little crown there. We're going to kind of make a triangle on top. We're going to let that dry a little bit. Let's try it one more time. A little bit of kind of an egg shape. He needs a little bit of a tail. And a little triangle for his head. There. And now what we can do is I'm going to, for the black, he's got a little black mask and a little bit of shadowing and marking in his tail. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that black just on the tip of my brush like this. And he typically has a red beak, so I can give him his little mask. I'm going to wipe off some of that black. It's a little thick. I can do a little, just drag the tip of that black paintbrush there. Whoops. And again, if you messed up like me here, we'll let it dry and we can paint over it, touch it up a little bit. There's that little mask. Little smile for his wing. And maybe a little texture in his tail. While you're at it, you can go ahead and just indicate maybe that he has feet. I'm just a couple of little lines. If you feel compelled to make toes, you can just tap in a little bit of marking that way. So here we have it. If you would like to add more things to it, you could tap in a little snow on your branches. You could take your brush, a dry brush, and a little bit of white paint and flick some white all over to make it a little snowy, or you can just leave it as is. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you do something lovely with your painting.